Welcome back to the Tidy Your Aim Hanger, and happy Friday, everybody. Today I'm going to talk to you about why we are seeing shortages on all of the products that we're looking for, such as toys that you see in Walmart. The shelves are empty, and we're seeing massive levels of shortages right now. Why we are not able to get the stuff that we want, delays in all of this stuff. I had another video planned, but I did put up a poll asking if you guys want to hear about this. And overwhelming yes, out of 259 votes, 93% of y'all want to hear what I have to say about this topic. And there's some very specific things that are holding up production, and it's a worldwide kind of situation that is going on. But it is a little bit political. I know a lot of people get offended when you talk about politics, so I've kind of smoothed around the edges just a little bit for those people. But if you get offended very easily, you probably don't want to watch past the intro on. But we will be discussing these issues that are causing massive shortages, maybe for the rest of the year, or maybe even longer. Talk about this coming up. Okay, so I'm going to link a lot of these articles down below for you so you can check out all this information yourself and not take just anything on face value. But our Commander-in-Chief, VP for now, Kamala Harris, has come out during foreign policy speech, and she had a few things to say, and the title, and it's not a joke, she says that if you want Christmas gifts for your children, then you need to start buying them now. If you want to get the toys, you need to buy them now.
The stories that we are now hearing about, the caution that if you want to have Christmas toys for your children, it might be the time to start buying them because the delay may be many, many months.
She had a few things to say in this video, and I want to really just quickly touch on those points, and then I'm going to get into some other stuff that's going on. This is a very small part of what's going on, but she does make a couple of valid points. She does say that it would be delayed for many, many months. So if you want to buy Christmas toys, the delay may be many, many months. Well, it's almost September. Many, many months is the rest of the year. That's the way I take that. First thing that she claims is the climate crisis and typhoons that destroy shipping lanes. Now, this is, if you just look it up, you see that almost every year typhoons have destroyed shipping lanes. It's kind of an every year kind of thing. I really think that's not really the big deal that's going on right now, but it is something that happens every year. She did cite the climate crisis causing sea level rise, and that's causing a threat to our ports infrastructure. So that is quite a possibility also, but that's still not really at the heart of what's causing these shortages and delays. Global demand is greater than the supply. Now that's hitting the nail right on the head. We do have an increase in global demand, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. There's a reason for that. Disruption to the supply chain, and there's a disruption to the supply chain simply because of between the manufacturing, the bottlenecks, and things that are going on, and we're going to talk about all of that. And then she also pointed out no country can satisfy worldwide demand by themselves. China is trying to, and I'm going to tell you, China is trying to satisfy worldwide demand, and they are seeing bottlenecks, they're witnessing bottlenecks in both production and shipping that are causing these massive delays. But there's more to the story than just that. So starting with talking about production, Chinese factories delay new orders as costs rise, risking shortages. And the high raw material prices and the lack of workers are forcing more manufacturers to slow production. So there's a couple of things here. Number one, an increase in materials. Now, there's a reason that materials are costing a lot more, and a big part of that is the increase in demand for those raw materials. So I want to really focus a little bit more on the labor shortage. We are having a lack of workers. There's a very specific reason because we have some unprecedented times here with the extra $600 CARES Act bonus that was put out. This has been the most devastating thing that's ever happened to our workforce in the U.S. And I'm pretty sure, according to every article that I've read, it's similar situations going on in China right now where this manufacturing occurs. So with this chart here, it looks a bit confusing. It's all over the place because it has weekly mixed with monthly maxes. Those are maximum payouts. Then the 600, and then you get into weekly totals and all of that. So I made a little chart myself that I think's a lot more simplified, to help people understand what really happened during this time frame and why it is so financially devastating to the workforce. Now, let's say somebody makes $7.25 an hour, or the new minimum wage for 2024, which will be $15 an hour. You can just double all these numbers, right? So multiply it by 35 hours a week, which is kind of on average what people are working, and then you get $254 a week. Now is that a livable wage? That's not the discussion we're having right here. The $254, what I gather from unemployment, I've never been on this, but I have asked a lot of people that have received it, and they've kind of given me the ballpark. It sounds like 70%. Then they get $177. So I'm going to round that up to 200 just to keep numbers even. So on the bottom line there, 200 plus the extra 600, they're getting $800. What is the deal here? Instead of them working to make $254, they sit at home and do nothing and receive $800. Now, who would choose to go work for the $254 a week when they could sit at home and collect $800? This has ruined our workforce, and it has probably ruined the workforce for many other countries. So that $600 isn't free. We are going to be paying for that for the rest of our lives. We're not going to be paying for it for a year. We're not going to be paying for it for 2 years. We're going to be paying for it for the rest of our existence on the planet. And it was a terrible idea, and it was bad. And no matter if you're left or right and what wing that you're on, it was a bad idea. And it should have stopped way sooner than it did. Well, one of the problems with that is that we effectively doubled the money supply, created almost as much money that already existed out of thin air. We're creating these dollars out of thin air. The U.S. did it, and so did almost every other country. Now, I don't have as much statistical data on other countries. It's much easier to get the U.S., and theoretically, our data is more transparent for us than in other countries. But I'm just going to go with on the surface here. These charts are very easy to acquire, wolfstreet.com. And what you notice is that we have spent so much money, created out of thin air, spent the money, and we're going to be paying for it forever. Now, this is also circling back to the other issue of rising prices on raw materials. So the next issue that we have here is shipping. Shipping is an issue, not even talking about the cost of shipping. I'm not even getting into the cost of shipping. I'm talking about the bottleneck of products sitting on the dock for a long time, unless you utilize airmail. With airmail, it seems to still go very well. But when you're floating it over there, there's the most financially feasible way to ship from China. And this is a problem. We are seeing severe, massive bottlenecks. And this is just like what? A week old, this article right here. And China is shutting down because of sickness. And again, here we are a full year later, and we're still shutting down due to sickness issues. In fact, we're hearing that it's a bigger problem now than it was before. One of the other issues is returning those containers. When you see that all of these containers get shipped out full of product, and what do they get? The vast majority of them are shipped back empty. And that is something that we get back to Kamala Harris's statement, no country can supply or satisfy demand on their own, which China is trying to. But if we are too heavily dependent in every single country, and we're too heavily dependent on one country, and they see bottlenecks like this, the entire world suffers. So we're getting into another point here, and we have so much money that was given out for free to people that are chasing the same amount of goods. So let's restate that. People have more money in their pockets, but the production isn't increased to satisfy that demand. So we're going to continue to see shortages just like this because of that problem. So in addition to having a lot of money chasing less goods, we actually have more online stores. So the retail is getting less allocation to retail locations. We have online stores popping up everywhere. Now this shows the biggest ones. There's so many small online stores that started up in 2020. I see it all the time. I see it someone else trying to promote a new store that popped up. There are advertisements for places I've never heard of before popping up, and they have product that I would generally find in the store. We don't see it because there's an unprecedented amount of new pop-up online stores. it sounds like that's just kind of an easy one to say, online store is killing retail. But it's killing in a different way. It's not just the big ones, it's the massive amount of small ones. So what are the solutions here? How can we fix this? First of all, we need to not be so dependent on one source. We need to start manufacturing in our own countries. We need to be more self-sufficient. And this goes for my international viewers also, because there's other countries that don't manufacture anymore. Why do we not manufacture? I'm going to talk a little bit about a few factories around me. There are two major reasons we don't manufacture in the U.S. And I imagine it carries over into other countries, the UK, Australia, Canada, and those kinds of places. But there are factories in the U.S. We still manufacture some stuff, but not everything, and not a lot of variety of items. But around here, the factory jobs are looked at as the best jobs, or some of the top jobs in my city. Now, the first issue of the two major issues why we don't manufacture in the U.S. like we used to is because of labor costs. Labor cost is higher in the U.S. than it is in some of these other countries. And so with that, there is a level of automation, but it's not 100% automated in these factories. And the people that I know that actually work in factories, they tell me that they make really good money and they're really motivated because they make said good money. So it is a higher labor cost, but that's not the biggest problem. The larger reason is regulations in the United States of America. Now, I'm sure it's similar in other countries too, but versus, say, China, they're not as heavily regulated and there's not as much quote-unquote red tape to cut through, such as pollution regulations, such as worker condition regulations. And I'm all for a safe work environment, but we really need to repeal back about half of these regulations that are out there so that we can make manufacturing in the U.S. or some other countries more affordable. But lastly, I also kind of wonder what our government knows that they don't tell us. Now, this is kind of some of the things I'm going to wrap up with. I do feel like our government does not tell us but about 10 to 15% of the information of what's going on. And I do understand there's reason for secrecy, for national security and all that, but what else are they not telling us? What else do they know? How can you come out and make a bold statement that several months we are going to be backed up? So there are some issues with that. There's another issue is that if you check this out, a lot of people are upset that we're talking about toys for Christmas and not the massive crisis going on across the way. An international crisis is going on right now, and we're talking about toys. I'm doing it, but that's just kind of what I do. Now, I want to make a statement, and I'm going to make this statement. I thank all of our soldiers that are out there doing what they're doing to fix this crisis. Thank you. Hope everybody likes, subscribes, or dislikes, I guess. Hydrarium Hanger out.